prepping for Trump while liberals choose sides. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Parliament is prorogued, but that hasn't stopped Liberals from descending on chilly Ottawa. Liberal MPs are now into their second day of a two-day meeting to converse about the two big issues confronting their minority government: the threat of tariffs from the Trump administration and who will lead the Liberal Party into the next election. Outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, wearing blue jeans and a sweater, spent a few minutes with the press gallery this week, and he continues to insist that when it comes to the Trump tariff threat, everything is up for discussion.
The federal government has continued to say clearly, as I will, that everything is on the table. But our efforts are first and foremost to make sure that tariffs don't come on Canada. It would be bad for Canada, yes, but it would also be bad for American consumers. And that's why we are continuing to make the case that rather than restrict the goods coming from Canada, the U.S. should be working even more with Canada on our energy, on our critical minerals, on the goods that they need to be able to have the economic growth that Donald Trump has promised. That is our first choice. Next, if they do move forward on tariffs, we are ready to respond in a strong way, but in a way that will be stepping up gradually with one goal: not to figure out how to manage these tariffs and live with them over the long term, but to figure out how to get them removed as quickly as possible. And on that, everything is on the table.
The Prime Minister is facing more pushback from a trio of provincial premiers on the idea of export taxes on energy, be it oil and gas from Alberta and Saskatchewan or hydroelectricity from Quebec. The premiers of those three provinces aren't in favor of using energy as leverage. Trump renewed his tariff threat yesterday during a speech to the World Economic Forum. He again suggested that if Canada wants to avoid tariffs, Canada should become the 51st state. That led the federal industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne, to try and calm frayed nerves.
Folks, let's take a deep breath as Canadians. We cannot react every single time that someone in Washington says something. You always should take it seriously. But, you know, we're in a couple of hours of his presidency. Let's breathe a bit, you know. We should be, we're strong, we're confident, we're going to do what we have to do. We're going to stand up for Canadians like we did with Amazon. You've seen what we said to Amazon. You know, laying off 1,700 workers, closing 7 sites. That's not how we do business in Canada. That is something. That is standing up for Canada, and you'll see more and more of that. We're going to stand up, defend Canadians, defend our workers.
Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has been portraying herself as the person best suited to take on Donald Trump. Freeland is seen as one of the frontrunners in the Liberal leadership race. When she spoke with reporters, most of the questions, though, weren't about tariffs, but rather why so many cabinet ministers are backing her main rival, Mark Carney, instead of her. She said she has lots of support from Liberal MPs, and then took a shot at Justin Trudeau.
For me, a huge emphasis is going to be reviving the party, reviving the grassroots of the party, reviving a real democratization process in the party. We can never again be in a position where the leader is the only person who decides who the leader is. And I think Liberal Party grassroots members and caucus need to have a greater say in what we do and how we do it.
As for Freeland's main rival in the Liberal leadership race, it has not gone unnoticed. And Mark Carney hasn't been seen in public very much lately. He did the interview with Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, and then he officially launched his campaign at an event in Edmonton. And he hasn't spoken to the media since. Well, since the media finally tracked him down on an Ottawa sidewalk yesterday, where he was cornered by the Globe and Mail's Bob Fife.
Just hang on a second. Let me ask you I have a question. You say you're the outsider, but it looks like the party establishment is lining up behind you.
C'est la question des issues deputies, elected members, ministers, others, Liberals across the country who are making a choice and are making a choice about the importance of the economy, the importance of coming together, building together. That's a free choice. This is the Liberal Party. We believe in freedom and we believe in good judgment, and thus far, Liberals are showing.
That's simply not good enough for some. Mark Carney has a good chance of becoming the next Prime Minister of Canada, maybe in just a few months from now. And Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner says nobody knows what Mark Carney stands for.
He's never held elected office of any form. He doesn't sit in Parliament. And he could be making Canada's policy at a time of national crisis. And yet, a week after launching his campaign, and longer than that, after going on American TV to soft launch his campaign, we have heard absolutely nothing. Zero. Crickets from this man about what he would do as Prime Minister. Now, I think this is especially curious because this is a man who has not shied away from the cameras in the past. He loves to be photographed at royal dinners and the Wimbledon box. He has spoken on every panel known to mankind, but he has not made any time for you guys. I don't think he's taken any questions with the Parliamentary Press Gallery, and he's certainly not taken any questions with Canadians.
As for that Liberal leadership race, the candidates have now passed the first hurdle. They put down $50,000, the first installment of a $350,000 entry fee. In addition to Freeland and Carney, the race includes Karina Gould from Burlington, Yami Batiste from Cape Breton Island, Chandra Arya from the Ottawa area, businessman Frank Baylis from Quebec, and former Liberal MP Ruby Dalla, who last represented a riding in Brampton some 14 years ago. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. And this is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
With our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, leadership, Barry McLoughlin, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. Hello there. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Rob. Great to be with you again.
You haven't seen Mark Carney, have you?
No, actually, I haven't. He lives around the corner from me. I didn't see him lately.
Yeah, he has been largely out of sight since his campaign launch, but we just played this. Let's play it again. He was ambushed. I would call it an ambush. Confronted by journalists at an Ottawa downtown intersection, including Bob Fife, who questioned all of these claims about being the outsider. Roll the tape again.
Hang on a second. Let me ask you a question. You say you're the outsider, but it looks like the party establishment is lining up behind you.
C'est une question it's the issue of deputies, elected members, ministers, others, Liberals across the country who are making a choice and are making a choice about the importance of the economy, the importance of coming together, building together. That's a free choice. This is the Liberal Party. We believe in freedom and we believe in good judgment, and thus far, Liberals are showing.
Yada. He was supposed to have a news conference this morning in Sudbury, but they canceled that. I mean, what? Barry. Yeah. What kind of communication strategy is this from a person who could be the Prime Minister 2 months from now?
Yes, he is being incredibly cautious. There's no question about it. He is the perceived front runner. Of course, you don't know until any delegates have been actually counted here, but he is the front runner. He is the perceived, heir apparent, but he's taking his time to tell us, even though he's had years to think about it. What would you do to replace the carbon tax? That hasn't been sorted out yet. These are the kind of things that I think he knows. When you open your mouth and pronounce, they all come out. When you're the front runner, they all come out shooting at you. So he should realize, though, if you don't mind saying strategically, that I learned this in leadership races. When they're all reacting to what you're saying, you're leading. They're reacting to you. he's trying another approach, which is, look, stay low key, stay below the radar line, gather the endorsements, keep it going, do your thing, don't be controversial. But that's a very safe, leadership kind of approach. Yeah. It's not what people are looking for, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a classic front-runner strategy, though, Barry.
Yep, that's what it is.
Right? Yeah.
And, it can work. The only issue, though, is that there are so many unanswered questions, and at a time of anxiety, people don't leap to the guy that isn't giving you the answers. So we need to know how he is going to go toe-to-toe, head-to-head with Pierre Poilievre, where he would take the nation differently. Notice the word change, how important this is. You and I talked about that. The change issue has become huge because it's hard for him to claim he's changed when everybody sees him as an insider. Perception is reality, and
even in that visual where he's kind of cornered on a sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
And who's around him? All kinds of cabinet ministers. There's Steve Guilbeault. There's Steve McKinnon. Like, these people are not outsiders, and they're all backing you.
Yeah.
This claim, I'm the outsider. I mean, it's wearing a bit thin, right?
They'll say, if people want change, and really, you've got to be aware of who your friends are. If your friends are really the insiders, if your friends are the decision makers, if your friends led us to where we are today, that's a problem for you. Your friends can hurt you more than your enemies. Your enemies can be very useful to you, but right now they appear to be very friendly with them, supportive of them. And it's hard for him to distance himself from that. So it's a very strange, unique situation he's in right now.
So what do you do in this circumstance? I mean, do you say, okay, I'm having a news conference at whatever time in whatever place, the media are welcome, da-da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you do something? Do you go on one of the Sunday political talk shows? What would you say he does?
I think he should be careful about the political talk shows. I think what he needs to do is to lead the news on key issues. What is his platform promise on the economy, on the environment, on the critical issues like housing? We haven't heard
tariffs,
what they are.
Tariffs or whatever, right? Yeah.
Tariffs.
Yeah.
He needs to lead the news with something tangible. Don't just hold a news conference and say, I'm concerned about it. We need to hear, what are you going to do about it? And so he could actually lead all newscasts and do it several times. It's a very short race, so there isn't a lot of time in between. You got to be rolling out your initiatives, your campaign promises, where you would take the party and therefore the country. But I'm not seeing that, and the time is moving very rapidly for him. So I think he has to do a gear shift here. He's perfectly capable of doing it, by the way, but they've chosen strategically, at least so far, not to lead with policy initiatives, campaign promises, etc. I think that may be a mistake.
Okay. So when we come back, we're going to talk about, whoever wins this thing could, in short order, find themselves in an election campaign. And I keep coming back to this question. What is the ballot question? What is the ballot question? And has the ballot question changed because of the Trump threat? When we come back, we'll put that again to Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Let me run this by you, Barry. This is developing just now in the last few minutes. Chrystia Freeland has posted a statement on social media. Quote, I am calling today for 4 candidates' debates, 2 in each official language, as soon as possible. Thoughts, please. What should Mark Carney do?
Well, Mark Carney, we saw, really does have much more labored French, let's put it that way, than Chrystia Freeland does. So, of course, she wants this. This would automatically give her a huge advantage. He'd be foolish to say no and be foolish to say yes. I think he has to say, we're going to leave that with the Liberal Party of Canada, along with the host broadcaster, to make the determination as to the format of those debates.
Okay. So one more thing.
Yeah.
She says, I am calling on each of us to make a pledge to run as a Liberal candidate in the next election and serve in the next parliament, no matter the outcome of the leadership race. This is something that she has said in her launch at that event in Toronto to differentiate herself from Mark Carney. Look, I was here when we were the third party. I ran in a by-election. I helped build this party. And I'm going to run in the next election. Can my opponent say the same thing? Right? What do you think of this?
This is designed to put the squeeze on Carney. He should not make the definitive answer to that. I think he should say, basically, let's not put the cart, ahead of the horse here. The fact of the matter is we have a leadership race. I'm focused on that, and we'll make a determination. By the way, I'm not going to speculate on whether Christie wins. I'm confident that I will win if I can really reach the Canadians with my message. So I'm focused on that. I think he should be very careful of making those Sherman-esque kind of statements.
All right. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before I asked you, what do you think the ballot question is going to be in the next election? And you said change. It's going to be a change election. Canadians want change. Given all the Trump news, do you still think that?
Well, first of all, ballot questions change over the course of an election. They start with one thing, become another. Right now, you are right. It would be, because we're so uncertain. What's going to happen with tariffs? What do we do with tariffs? Huge number one issue right now. There's no question about that. Once we get to an election, after the leadership campaign, getting into May, there's going to be an election probably. That could be a very different ballot question. It still boils down to how will you be different from Justin Trudeau? How will you truly, how will you represent and defend me, my family, and my community? How will your change benefit us? And each of them have to prove that. And I think that right now we have to say it's the tariffs in U.S., but that can actually change into a more powerful one, and it's going to be toe-to-toe with whoever the leader is against Pierre Poilievre. And right now the Liberals are very concerned about, is this person going to beat Pierre Poilievre at the polls? Are we going to be able to stay in power as Liberals with him or her or whomever as the leader? That's the core question that they're very worried about. They want to get a winner out of this one.
We only have a minute left, but I know you've spoken many times with us. You had really admired John F. Kennedy. No doubt about it. Trump says he's going to release all the documents related to the assassination. Is there anything you want to learn about that?
I don't think there are any shocking revelations. There's the second gun and all this stuff. I don't believe so. But I think I do want to know more of the involvement of the CIA, more of the involvement of the machinery of the FBI. We want to know what really was going on behind the scenes there, that A, allowed it to happen, B, ignored all kinds of warnings, and the way they treated Oswald prior to all of this. There's much hidden and uncertain. We have to know what that is, because you don't learn anything from history if you're going to hide it. So I think, whatever his motives are, we don't know, but it is important. We know Ted Cruz's family probably wasn't involved in this. But anyway, bottom line is that there's enough. It's probably the biggest single incident in which there's a desperate hunger to know more, and hiding it is not helping the credibility of governments. Period. And so he gets to be the guy that's going to unleash here. What's the real truth? I'm the truth finder. So it kind of works for him politically.
All right, very interesting. Hey, thank you. Stay warm.
I will. Thanks, Rob.
Talk to you soon. That's Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants, with us every week. So is Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter, and he's coming right up on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business. Tom Korski's back with us. He's the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back.
Thank you, Rob.
Let's talk about the Parliamentary Budget Officer, Budget Watchdog for Parliament, out with a report this week. What does it say about the state of the country's finances?
It says we've reached a new law on accountability. I'm quoting it accurately. Reached a new law on transparency in public spending. What was the problem? The public accounts, as you've discussed in the past, Rob, this is the only document that allows taxpayers to understand where their money is actually spent. It's called public accounts. And it will cover expenditures of as little as a few $100s up to billions, spent on entire departments. Crucial document. And MPs and senators need it whenever they vote on a budget appropriation. You can't spend a dollar without a vote in Parliament.
That's right.
And this cabinet has delayed and delayed and delayed, and it's been like pulling teeth to get public accounts. And last year, they set a record. They waited until literally the last possible hour of the parliamentary sitting to disclose the public accounts. Budget Officer Yves Giroux says, you know, this is almost an angry note in the language of an accountant.
Oh, yes, it is.
What did he say? As noted ad nauseum by the Budget Office, timely publication of public accounts is crucial for transparency. They're getting an F, Rob.
Well, yeah, I have the report right in front of me. I mean, he has a whole section of the report, and it's headlined Public Accounts Unaccountably Late. Unaccountably late. Let me quote, the federal government's ability or willingness to produce high-quality, timely financial statements continues to deteriorate. As depicted, it reached a new low this year with a historically long delay in the signing of the public accounts by the Auditor General, 253 days after the fiscal year ended. The public accounts were tabled almost 9 months after the fiscal year closed. Even worse, the audited financial statements were inexplicably tabled the day after the fall economic statement rather than prior to or alongside the government's economic and fiscal plan. And he has a recommendation. We shouldn't let the government table the public accounts, say, no later than New Year's Eve. They should, in the interest of transparency, be tabled no later than September 30th. Why do we send MPs to the House of Commons if this is what governments can get away with, tabling the public accounts with hours to go until the legislature rises for the Christmas holidays? Yeah.
This is the whole point, Rob. A country of 40 million people. You can't have a group of 5 or 6, the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister, the Comptroller General, who know what's going on with a $500 billion budget. And MPs have questioned this. They say, well, why? Why? And they came up with a theory, and it's as good as any theory, because they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed. They overshot their deficit target by 55% and spent like fools. Unbelievable overspending in the last fiscal year. Well, you don't want that getting out, and that's where we are.
Yeah. We have talked at some length about the carbon tax, and now we're in a Liberal leadership race, and the carbon tax seems to be dead and buried. They can't run away from it fast enough. And it appears as though the same is happening with the capital gains inclusion rate and the plan to increase that, Tom.
Karina Gould, former government House leader, is famously saying, Liberal contender, a leadership contender, famously saying, you know, I don't think we got it right with that capital gains tax. It can cost $18 billion, and, you know, business doesn't like it, and I don't think it's such a good idea. Problem,
yeah.
MP Gould voted for it last June. Where were you? And she showed up for a vote, and it was a Ways and Means motion. It's not a procedural effect. It's an endorsement in principle. Conservatives opposed it. Got grief for it. They were told by Cabinet, there you go, look at them, there they go, siding with the fat cats. And now Karina Gould, who had voted for the capital gains tax increase, says, you know, I'm having second thoughts about it.
Oh, yeah, I got even a better one for you. I got a better one for you, Tom Korski, because the Freeland campaign has leaked it all over town. Of course, I think if Chrystia Freeland wins the Liberal leadership, she's going to cancel the planned increase to the capital gains inclusion rate. 6 months ago, when she was out promoting the budget, she was asking, well, what kind of Canada do you want to live in? We're asking the rich to pay a little bit more. Let's listen to a little bit of this. This is quite something here. Play that, David.
But I would also like to ask Canada's 1%. In fact, Canada's 0.13% to consider this. What kind of a Canada do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a country where kids go to school hungry? Do you want to live in a country where a teenage girl gets pregnant just because she doesn't have the money to buy birth control? Do you want to live in a country where the only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are those with parents who can help with the down payment? Do you want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in healthcare, in housing, in old age pensions, but we lack the political will to pay for them and choose instead to pass a ballooning debt onto our children? Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but must do so in gated communities behind ever higher fences, using private health care and airplanes, because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the vast majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot?
Oh my gosh. Like, lay it on a little thicker, lady.
No,
but I guess that's the kind of Canada she wants to live in, Tom.
You know, Rob, if Mother Teresa made that speech, I mean, I would be in tears. It's just that beautiful. The problem is the person who gave that speech, as you mentioned, has now changed her mind, but is also a multimillionaire and owns property in 2 continents. Ms. Freeland likes to play the Alberta farm girl who's just a plain country Chrissy who's trying to make her way in the big city. Don't be fooled. She owns property in London. This is 7-figure property, famously in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Toronto, as well as Kiev. Thanks for nothing. You hear a speech like that, and you really want to reach for the pitchfork and the burning torch.
Because the wrath burns so hot, Tom Korski. I'll be right back. We'll talk about the carbon tax and just who the government is helping through a court challenges program to fight the carbon tax, to fight to keep the carbon tax. I'm Rob Snow here with Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Here with Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. So let's think back to 2021, and there's a big court case about the carbon tax, the constitutionality of the carbon tax. Is it federal jurisdiction? Is it provincial jurisdiction? Just what is it on the carbon tax? And on one side, you have provincial governments like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario. They're challenging the constitutional validity of the carbon tax. On the other side, you have the federal government saying it's our jurisdiction under peace, order, and good government. Typically, in a case like this, you would have interveners, but there's a strange twist in the carbon tax case. Who was funding some of the interveners? Tell us more.
You were helping the federal government buy some friends. It's unbelievable, yes. Rob. There were 40 interveners in that case. It was a crucial case, as you mentioned, on the entire carbon tax scheme, this multi-billion-dollar tax scheme. And the feds paid for some friends. They, through a program called the Court Challenges Program, under a line budget item for human rights challenges, paid for unidentified interveners to argue in favor of the government side. They called this a human rights intervention. And they will not say which environmental group or other intervener received funding or how much they were paid. The Court Challenges Program remains one of the most secretive non-military federal programs. They've spent tens of millions of dollars under the guise of, so they say publicly, this is to help, the Filipino single mom who's working at the asbestos factory and has having trouble with workplace health and safety regulations, wants to fight the man, can't come up with thousands of dollars. That's, we were told, the point of the Court Challenges Program. What did they do? They hired friends to argue in favor of a federal tax. Unbelievable, but they won't say who.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be a program that is designed to help people litigate charter issues, human rights issues. Well, is the carbon tax a human rights issue, or is it tax policy, or is it environmental policy? Human rights policy?
Well, they've tried.
I don't know.
There have been separate cases. Environmental groups have tried to get a declaration from some judge somewhere that individuals have a constitutional right to a clean environment. And court after court has said, nice try.
Yeah. But even the former Attorney General in the Harper years, Vic Taves, I mean, he tried to find out. He was the Attorney General. Even he couldn't find out about this, where the money was going in this program. He was the Attorney General at the time. Right?
Absolutely. That's why the Harper cabinet 2006 disbanded the program. They always suspected there were shenanigans. And you're right, Vic Taves, then Attorney General, testified famously in Government Operations Committee in 2007. I know that's a few years ago now. He said, they keep telling me it's solicitor-client privilege. I'm the Attorney General, and even I can't find out.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah. I found this to be, this is good for the public broadcaster, I guess. It doesn't work this way anywhere else in the media landscape. Hey, we're having trouble selling this advertising space. Imagine this in whatever, the Calgary Herald or the Montreal Gazette having trouble filling the advertising space, or on a private radio station like ours. Imagine being able to go to the government and saying, hey, will you top us up for the ads that we can't sell? That's what the government is going to do for the CBC. It's nice to be the CBC, I guess, Tom.
As the Department of Canadian Heritage says in a briefing note, they're pulling a sneaky. This is a good one. Private broadcasters for decades have said it is unfair that we have to compete with the CBC on advertising dollars. There's only so many advertising dollars. Why should we have to compete with the Government of Canada? Yeah. And for years and years, the CBC said, drop dead. All of a sudden, they found Jesus, and they have convinced the Department of Canadian Heritage that they don't want to carry television advertising anymore. Now, that's because they don't have any. Their TV advertisements dropping like a stone.
Yeah.
And so what they want is the compensation for the ads they can no longer sell.
Yeah. And how much compensation would that amount to?
Well, Kathy Tate, the CEO, put it at, in her words, $400 million to $500 million.
Right. Yeah.
Another $500 million a year. More, please.
Which would bring total government funding for the public broadcaster to roughly how much?
$1.9 billion, almost $2 billion a year. $2 billion. It's staggering, really. You could almost buy an aircraft carrier for that.
Goodness gracious. And for the ratings they get, worth every penny. All right. Okay. Thank you, Tom Korski. You have yourself a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
You bet.
Yep. Managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Well, David, we made it. We made it to Friday.
Felt like a bit of a long week for me. I don't know how you're feeling. I feel like
it was busy, but it was long. I think that's weather related, Dave, because it's been cold in this part of the country.
Yeah.
This week. And we had kind of a one-day reprieve, not to complain, but it was minus 24 when I woke up this morning. That was before the wind chill, and I was like, it's only the end of January, and I'm already done with winter. I'm so done with winter. But anyway, look, if you're ever looking for a podcast for our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have a great new mobile app. It will help you hear our show when you want to, or you can listen live. It's called the Seeker app. Seekr. All kinds of exclusive audio you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, sports, and you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. Seeker, spelled Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow, also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. David will be hosting the Big Story podcast, also available on the Seeker app. And what do you have coming up on the Big Story, Dave? What's the big story?
Tomorrow's episode, the Big Story, is all about artificial intelligence and the intersection of the AI arms race and Donald Trump's MAGA 2.0 agenda. I sat down with a fella named Don Lanahan, very smart guy, runs a research think tank type operation here in Ottawa, PhDs, an expert in digital technologies and governments. So he's spent a career studying how technology influences government and decision-making and impacts society. And Donald Trump, the long and the short of it is Donald Trump's AI posture and his policy is very different from the Biden administration. Artificial intelligence development right now around the world is effectively an arms race. And everybody, Silicon Valley, the Chinese government, everybody is rushing towards what they call artificial general intelligence. Right now we have AI. The next big frontier is AGI. And the difference, the artificial general intelligence, the difference is AGI is able to teach itself new things. It's kind of spooky. But basically...
Oh, like generative AI. Yeah, generative AI.
We have generative AI currently, but artificial general intelligence takes it a step further. Generative AI can find you the shoes for sale in Ottawa. Artificial general intelligence will go out and buy them for you. It'll take your credit card, buy them, and ship them to your house. Pretty crazy stuff.
Well, as long as it has my permission, I guess that's okay.
So the Trump administration favors a much more hands-off, unregulated approach to AI development, whereas the Biden administration was more pro-regulation. There's a balance to be struck there. You want to win the arms race, but you don't want to release rogue AI or end the world with this crazy technology. So we get into the
what if what's it called? General AI?
Artificial general intelligence.
Artificial general intelligence. Like what if it goes rogue and I end up with like, you know, a shoe collection like Imelda Marcos. we don't want that.
Yeah. And then, you know, if this thing's in charge of, you know, military procurement for a government, it could go off the rails and start buying all sorts of weapons.
All right. So that's the Big Story podcast. When is that available?
That will be up tomorrow, the Saturday edition of the Big Story podcast.
All right. Looking forward to that. So look, coming up after the news at the top of the hour, you know what we do on Friday. Friday Free for All Talkback. So it's open line, open topic. We've been coming up with topics, and it's been a hot week in news, and we can talk about everything that's been in the news this week or something else entirely. We'll just follow your lead. That's how we roll on Fridays. Friday Free for All Talkback. Your call's coming up right after the news. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. Last one of the week. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today it's the Friday Free for All. And that's our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Friday. We've been doing that all week. So today it's your turn. What is on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, certainly no shortage of material to work with this week. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, you just raise that here and we will do our best to follow along. Whatever it happens to be, we're ready to follow your lead. So the call-in line, every line available right now. Love to hear from you. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that to our call screener, and we will make your call a priority. I mean, think about the big stories that we covered this week. Trump's inauguration, that was only on Monday. David, that was only on Monday. Holy smokes, think of everything that's happened since then. Trump and tariffs, Trump and the 51st state, we covered all of that in great detail. And, Donald Trump is still talking about tariffs. He was talking about tariffs yesterday, maybe as soon as February 1st, he says. Now, Trump is still talking about making Canada the 51st state. And if we want to avoid tariffs, we should just become a state. And he said today, Canadians would get better health care if they became a state. I don't know. You maybe want to weigh in on that. And he's still saying America doesn't need any of the stuff we send their way. You hear him say this all the time. The United States doesn't need their cars. The United States doesn't need their lumber. The United States doesn't need their oil and gas. So look, you had a lot of opinions on this throughout the week. And go ahead and give us a call if you want to jump right back into it. I mean, when you think about it, the whole Trump comeback is having such a major impact on the politics of this country. I mean, for listeners in Ontario, I mean, it's official now. You're going to have a snap election. And Donald Trump and tariffs is being used as the excuse by Premier Doug Ford for calling a snap election. Doug Ford called the election. Well, he basically called it today. It's going to start on Wednesday, but he confirmed it today. Okay? And we have some audio. Doug Ford confirming the election voting day is going to be February 27th. It'll be a short election campaign. Let's listen to a little bit. Doug Ford today.
We will be calling the election next Wednesday. I'll be seeing the Lieutenant Governor on Tuesday. We need a mandate from the people to fight against Donald Trump's tariffs, the attack he's coming against our families, our businesses, our communities. And with a strong mandate, we will be able to fight with Donald Trump to make sure we stop the tariffs and make sure that we give certainty.
It's pretty thin gruel, if you ask me. I mean, the last election in Ontario was just 2.5 years ago, and Doug Ford and his Progressive Conservative Party won a massive majority government at that time. And he has a big lead in the polls. He's up by something like 20 points in the polls. And unlike Mr. Trudeau in Ottawa, Doug Ford's government isn't about to fall on any kind of confidence vote. In other words, he already has a mandate. He has all the mandate that he's ever going to need. So why is he calling the election? The fact is, in my own opinion, it's no secret he's been dying to call an early election for months now because he wants to get ahead of a few things. First of all, if these tariffs come, that has the potential of seriously harming the Ontario economy, the Canadian economy. He'll want to get ahead of that. I understand that. Recessions aren't good for governments. There's also the Poilievre factor. These two, you would think, would see eye to eye in a lot of things, but they don't. Doug Ford's a big spender. Poilievre is not. And Poilievre hasn't been a big fan of Doug Ford's dreams for electric vehicles. And it looks like Doug Ford's EV dreams are going to be a colossal waste of money. And if the federal government in Ottawa is going to do some downsizing, that means tough decisions could be ahead for provincial governments. And Doug Ford, let's face it, hasn't run a squeaky clean government. His government is under investigation by the RCMP over something called the Greenbelt scandal. And he wants to win now in case what hits the fan on that investigation. So here we are, the guy who's portraying himself to be Captain Canada, standing up to Trump, is now going to spend 36 days on an election campaign. Maybe you have some thoughts on that. Then there's Alberta Premier Danielle Smith. I think her reputation improved throughout the week. Do you think last week she was being called a traitor? She was being called a sellout. Well, now she seems to have some allies, even getting some friendly coverage in the opinion pages of the Globe and Mail today, which is a rarity for any Alberta premier. So if you want to talk about the Alberta premier, by all means. I think, and I'd really love to hear from callers in Nova Scotia today on this Friday. I think this is the most interesting turn of events this week, is what we heard from the Nova Scotia Premier, Tim Houston. Love to hear from our listeners in Nova Scotia about what your premier is saying. Progressive Conservative Premier Tim Houston, my words, not his. Sounds like he has a new energy policy for that province. Drill, baby, drill. He says Nova Scotia has enormous potential in natural resources, and it's time to start tapping into it. He says, look, our province has an aging population. We have skyrocketing healthcare costs, and we need the money. The government needs the money. So what is that going to mean? Well, for example, fracking is banned in Nova Scotia. his government might lift that ban. There's a moratorium for some parts of the offshore of Nova Scotia for exploration for oil and gas. Maybe he lifts that. He likes the idea of an Energy East pipeline. He says, we can't be banning things. We banned too many things in this province, and it's time to get some shovels in the ground. And he also said, the people in the West are getting sick and tired of Nova Scotia taking equalization payments. So to our listeners in Halifax and beyond, well, to all of our listeners, really, what do you think about what you're hearing from the Premier of Nova Scotia? Drill, baby, drill. I think that's enough to get us going. See what the day brings. It's Talkback. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback. Open line, open topic. 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It sure is. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback, so it's open line, open topic today. We will do our best to follow along with any suggestions you have. Let's go to Morgan up first on the Friday free-for-all Talkback, calling from Halifax today. Hello, Morgan.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Morgan. How are you?
Great. I just interesting topic you brought up about Premier Houston, and it's about time Nova Scotia we developed our natural resources.
Okay.
There's so much potential here, but I'm glad he has a supermajority because I guarantee what's going to happen. Doesn't matter if it's mining, fishing, wind energy, you name it. There is going to be a very small, a very vocal minority group that's going to raise hell.
Yeah.
And this seems, and I never agreed in the media, is that there's such a small group, but they're always going to get 50-50 news time. Because I realize you got to give both sides of the story, but someone has to weigh it out and say, you know, for this province to move forward, you have to have a vision, and the NIMBYism that goes on. Like sometimes that's just, you know, in order for us to move forward, some people aren't going to be happy, and you got to tell it's the majority, not the minority. So hopefully.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So let me ask you if they start fracking in Nova Scotia, or there are oil rigs off the coast of Nova Scotia, you're okay with that?
100%, as long as, you know, nobody wants to see any pollution like going in the water and stuff like that. So as long as the regulation, it's monitored and it's realistic. You know, it's not tie it up for years and years. But we can do both. We can do both.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to a little bit of, let's play Houston number 1. This is Tim Houston, Premier of Nova Scotia. This is a little bit of what he said yesterday during a news conference.
There are a number of bans in this province. It's a long list of industries, entire sectors that we've banned. If we want to grow our economy and provide the social and fulfill our social responsibility to Nova Scotians, then we need to grow our economy and grow our industries. And we can't expect Nova Scotia to prosper when we ban industry after industry after industry. So we need to have, you know, proper discussions about how these things can be done safely. But the reality is I hear from families every single day who are having trouble paying their bills. I hear from families every single day that are just struggling with housing, with you know, paying for their power, making decisions about what to buy instead of groceries. Like, I hear from those families every single day. And we have the potential to grow our economy and start to address those, and we can't look away from them.
I say amen. Like, all the power to you, Morgan.
100%. You know, who can argue with that, right? And as long as it's done respectfully and, you know, like,
and you're going to have consultations with First Nations. I mean, it's going to be the current things are kind of aligning now. Certainly, would he be saying this if Joe Biden was still in the White House or the Democrats had won the election? I don't know. Would he be saying this if it looked like the Liberals were headed for another win in the federal election? No, things are kind of aligning here. I think that's why he's saying what he is. The stars are kind of aligned for this kind of project now, I think.
I think Canada right now has kind of hit a bit of a reality right now because it's harder for us to trade east and west than it is like north to south. And we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. So we got to diversify. Nova Scotia has everything they need and everything we need to move forward. So full steam ahead. That's all I can say.
Yeah, good points. Thank you. Let's take another call. Michael in Cape Breton. Michael, what do you think about what your premier is saying here, Michael?
Your caller is dead on the money. We got to go back and create our own primary producers. Natural gas. I worked in the coal mines and started bubbling as you see the coal. We got all kinds of natural gas. We don't need the coal yet, but even if we do, we can refine it down to the dust and even ship that right to the plate, right on the surface where we take the coal up at, produce hydroelectric power. We can change our whole power grid over and take all Nova Scotia power that's in the hands of those greedy people now that got the power off everywhere here over nothing, that are making all the money, but they're not reinvesting. And it's time for the people to get into the primary producer. That's the only way we're going to have an economy again. I think it's a great idea. I'm certainly not conservative, mind you, but I believe it's a great idea, and the time has come. It's time for us to stop depending on the United States and Archie Bunker or somebody over in Britain or Hawker Siddeley or Robinson or we got the energy here, let's produce it. We got the farmland here, let's produce it. We got the tourism here, let's produce it. We got a whole ocean that we can still take fish food out of that the world is craving for. We got around with this.
All right. I'm surprised to hear that from you. I'm because I'm sure you're probably not a big fan of Tim Houston, but you think he's on the right track here. That's interesting. Thank you, Michael. Okay, let's stop here. We're on our way. It's Talkback. I mean, we're wide open on topics today. This is one of them, though. I mean, this is incredible to me. The number of premiers in Eastern Canada now who are lamenting the fact now, in hindsight, that we don't have an Energy East pipeline. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Joe in Cambridge, you're on the Friday free-for-all Talkback. Joe, what's on your mind?
What's on the mind? Okay. Trump seems to think that he has got a $270 billion deficit somewhere there. What about
trade
the other
deficit?
way?
Yeah.
We've got Canada owing them. It's probably about the same sort of money, about 220, 230. It's a difference of about $40, $50 billion. Like, what gives? All Trump's doing is stirring up people that don't know anything about economics, which is probably 80% of their country, and probably most of ours. And he's just ignoring it. He's just stirring stuff up.
Okay. To what end? To what end? Why is he, quote unquote, stirring stuff up? Why do you think he's doing that?
Just to rile us. It's just either deflecting his attention or our attention from something else.
Okay.
Right? Because that's usually what they do.
Okay.
Or he just wants to be Mr. Big. And he just opens his mouth and rubbish comes out regardless.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he says tariffs on February 1st. Do you believe that when he says that?
He'll try it. But
He'll try it. Okay.
People are more aware of what's going on, he'll get away with it. And he's just stirring stuff up, that's all.
Well, he certainly stirred stuff up, that's for sure, because, I mean, you're calling from Cambridge, Ontario. You know, the premier of your province has said what's coming is so dangerous. We have to have an election, even though he has a big majority government and a big lead in the polls. What do you think of what Doug Ford did today?
Well, I think he should do a bit of reading, and he's probably jumping on the same bandwagon.
Do you think he's taking advantage of a crisis?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do I, by the way. All right. Okay. Thank you, Joe, for your call.
No problem.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Everybody should know that it's not 270 million, it's about 50 billion.
Yeah, and most of that is oil and gas that we're sending them at a discount.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, you're paying attention, Joe. I got you. Thank you. We will have to stop here. My apologies to people who are on the line. But Joe was making some good points there. We'll be right back right after the latest breaking news. It is our Friday Free-for-All Talkback Hour. So if you're on the line, we will get you on the air right after the news and hear what you have to say today as we get your opinions on the last Talkback of this week. And it's been a very busy week. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
You take the lead today. It's the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. Oh, let's talk some football with Eric in Halifax.
Yeah,
Hello,
let's
Eric.
talk some football. Never mind about what's going on in the rest of the world. There's nothing we can do about it. As far as Timmy goes, as long as he keeps the cap up for the rent, I'll be happy with him. Okay, so let's get right to the football. All right.
Yeah.
Football is going to be decided in both games by field goals. And the reason why I say that is because Kansas City wants Buffalo so bad it isn't funny. But the last time they met, they were in Buffalo, and they beat them by Kansas City by 9. So I think that one's going to come down to a field goal. Washington Commandos.
Yeah, well, hold on. So who are you picking? Hold on, Eric. Eric. So who are you picking? Who are you picking? Bills and Chiefs?
I'm picking Kansas City and Philadelphia in the Super Bowl.
Okay, all right, okay.
And it's going to be 21-18 for Kansas City. But I'm getting back to Washington.
Yeah.
Washington and Philadelphia, this is a rubber match. And in the two games that they played, Philadelphia outscored them 59-54. Washington scares me to death. And I don't know why I'm saying that, but they manhandled Detroit. They
Yes,
won
they did, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was a big surprise to me how poorly Detroit played last week. But, boy, that Washington is exciting to watch, aren't they? They're just on this Cinderella run right now, and I guess, they're playing with house money, so they're throwing caution to the wind. They're going, 4th and 2, they're going for it. 4th and 4, they're going for it. It's really exciting football, actually. I just think with the Eagles, you just give the ball to the Barkley and just let him go with it, to me.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah. I mean, but like I said, prior to this, to what you just said, the 2 games, Philadelphia won by 5 points. Okay? So Washington can stay with them. But I'm still going with Kansas City and Philadelphia. The score is going to be 21-18 for Kansas City.
Well, I'm with you. I'm if the game had been in Buffalo, I'd pick Buffalo. But I'm going with the Chiefs because I think they're going to win at home. They'll have all the Swifties and everything, and I'm going with the Eagles.
When I was in Ontario, I went to a couple of the games when Kelly was there, and Kelly couldn't pick his nose right half the time. But that was another story. But I tell you, if it was in Buffalo, I would have to favor Buffalo. But I'm not going against Kansas City. They're on the verge of three-peating, and they're going to be a dynasty like the New England Patriots were.
Yeah, you may be right. Brady. You may be right. Okay, thanks, Eric. We'll see see how the Super Bowl matchup looks like next week. Okay, thank you. Good call. Let's take a call from Calgary. First call from Calgary today. Jody in Calgary. Hi, Jody.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Jody.
First of all, I got about 3 or 4 topics here. First of all, I want to say go Bills all the way.
Go Bills. Okay. Yeah, I'm cheering for the Bills.
Rob Ford is a mouthpiece. He's a complete joke. He's a complete joke. But anyway, he'll win again. We know that. And I want to. Did you hear what Mark Miller called Pierre Poilievre there? Was it yesterday on the news?
No, I didn't hear that. No. What did he say?
Because when they asked Pierre Poilievre like how many genders there was, like he said that the last time he knew, he heard that there was like 2 genders. So Mark Miller basically called him a jackass for saying that. So
yeah, well, Mark Miller has no class. Mark Miller has no class.
Am I like living under a rock, or is there more than 2 genders? I was just wondering. I mean, I was just trying to get some opinions.
Right. Well, I mean, what's the point of even having this debate? I mean, the 2 sides, if there are 2 sides on this, they're never going to agree anyway. But my point would be Mark Miller, I wouldn't even listen to that guy anymore. He has no class. He has nothing good to say about anyone. And the last time I checked, he was the immigration minister of a dysfunctional immigration system. And before that, he was the housing minister during one of the worst housing crises that Canadians have ever suffered. So I wouldn't worry about anyone taking any advice from the likes of Mark Miller. That would be my opinion.
And my last thing is Houston from Nova Scotia?
Tim Houston, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, maybe he can open up some eyes of Canadians and realize that we have one of the greatest resources in the world here, and we should use it. We should use it more, I guess.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things that he said is that he's hearing it. Like, he hears it from people in Western Canada, that they're sick of not getting anything from equalization while Nova Scotia gets, tens of millions of dollars every year. And he wants to change that. He wants to make his province a have province. What's wrong with that? Shouldn't that be the goal of every premier?
I kind of like this guy. I mean, I wish he was running for. I wish he was maybe would take over Poilievre and be the next prime minister.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I like his personality.
Yeah, he's kind of a low key guy. I don't know. I don't even know if he speaks any French. But I'm going to end it there. Thank you.
Rob,
okay.
Take care.
Good to hear from you, Jody. Yeah. In Calgary today. Eric in Cole Harbour up next. Hi, Eric.
Hey, hi, Rob. How you doing?
I'm
Listen,
good.
I got
good.
a little bit of a different point of view about all the brouhaha about Trump. John Locke stated that to be a liberal meant that you had the right to own property, the right to have a business, the right to have freedom of religion, and the right to have freedom of speech. So my first point is, what has Trudeau or the Biden-Harris administration, when they were in power, do anything to perpetuate liberalism? The second thing is, if you look at Canada joining the United States in an economic union, it would take us from under the control of the World Trade Organization, which is controlled by China. And secondly, it would be a great economic benefit, and we could have a North American dollar such as they have in Europe overseas, a euro dollar. Mm-hmm. Then if you look at freedom of speech, well, you have Bill C-63 that prevents that, I think, if that's the correct bill. And then in the United States, things were censored quite a bit by the government, what the media outlets were allowed to say and what they weren't allowed to say. Then if you look at the other economic benefit of having an external revenue service instead of an internal revenue service, then when you look at that, there's quite a possibility that we would economically benefit from that in terms of personal tax. And, and corporations here that run businesses with Canadian-owned would probably benefit from that, because more money could be achieved by having the external revenue taxes they have in Dubai, or, for instance, like they have in China. So it could actually lower income tax for us, and maybe we would have an economic benefit from that. So last thing I'll say, Rob, and maybe you want it, the World Economic Forum, if you take time to read, I don't mean you personally, but if we all take time to read it, you'll be happy and own nothing by 2030. How has that anything to do with freedom of any kind And if you look at religious persecution, you've had 80 to 100 Christian churches burnt in Canada and over 300 attacked in the United States. So there's something missing with this woke liberalism. And I put forward that Trump is probably more liberal than these people that say that.
You're saying in the classic sense of liberalism. Okay, Eric, I got you. Thank you. Okay, we'll be right back. It's the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. We have 3 lines available there. 1-833-668-2577. Love to hear from first-time callers as well. Make your call a priority today. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Okay, I have a piece of breaking news that I just want to report to you right now. Since when the lockout/strike was happening at Canada Post, you had a lot to say about Canada Post, and we talked so much about how Canada Post said it was going out of business. Like, if something didn't change, Canada Post was going out of business. Bob Fife from the Globe and Mail has just posted that the Trudeau government is giving Canada Post access of $1.03 billion so it can, quote, maintain its solvency. Wow. And ensure it can continue its operations as it faces ongoing financial challenges. Any cash provided will be on an as-needed basis to pay non-discretionary obligations, whatever those are. But the Trudeau government is, this is how bad things are at Canada Post. Trudeau government is going to give $1 billion to Canada Post to keep the lights on, basically, at Canada Post. Wow. We're going to be doing some digging on that. Let's go to Mike, is calling from Halifax. Hi, Mike. Thanks for calling, Mike. You're on the air.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Mike.
Just my first thing is we lose the last hour of your show every day, and I hate that. That sucks. But
yeah, that's
anyway,
not my decision,
Halifax,
sir.
I know it's not. I know it's not your fault.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I hate how Atlantic Canada takes a lot of heat because of Quebec. Like, when it comes to Energy East, Atlantic Canada was pretty much for that.
Sure.
New Brunswick was the biggest pusher of it. They wanted it for the St. John refinery.
Yeah.
And really, the rest of the Atlantic provinces had no say because it didn't go over through their provinces. It stopped it in New Brunswick. Yeah, you get Quebec, pretty much the ones who kiboshed it, and they received the absolute most in equalization payments.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
I don't know. I say go Houston. It's about time we had someone here that, wants to get off the teat of the federal government and of Western Canada. And I don't like the hate from Western Canada, but I get it.
Yeah. Believe me, as someone who takes a lot of calls from a lot of people in Alberta, I don't take a lot of calls from people who are hating on Nova Scotia. I do get a lot of calls from Albertans who aren't pleased with the fiscal arrangement for Quebec, most certainly.
Yeah,
and you're right. Even today, we have a clip of Doug Ford here, for example, David, about Energy East. What did Doug Ford say about pipelines today?
And I highly recommend the next federal government, let's start building a pipeline out to the West Coast until we can ship our oil anywhere in the world. Start focusing on building a pipeline east until we can ship our oil anywhere in the world. We don't have to rely on the Americans or President Trump that is attacking our livelihood, attacking our businesses. His goal is to take every single business out of Canada and ship it.
That's good. So Doug Ford's in favor of Energy East. So what the press gallery in Ottawa should be doing and what the press gallery in Quebec City should be doing right now is they should be sticking a microphone in the face of François Legault, who's the premier of Quebec, the leader of the Parti Québécois in Quebec City, who's going to be the next premier of Quebec, and the leader of the Bloc Québécois in Ottawa, and saying, have circumstances changed now? Like, I live in Quebec. I can tell you, Quebec doesn't run on fairy dust. Quebec doesn't run on sunshine and lollipops. We use Oil and gas in Quebec, just like everywhere else in the country. Is a pipeline still off limits? That's what I would like to know.
And it would create national unity, if you ask me. I mean, that's my opinion.
Oh, sure.
And
Sure.
Doug Ford looks like a fool right now. Where was he 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when they were trying to do Energy East? Why wasn't he standing up?
It was 8 years ago. It was 8 years ago. He wasn't in office 8 years ago.
Oh, was it that long ago? So he wasn't in office then. Okay.
They pulled the plug in 2017. Yeah, they pulled the plug in 2017. Yeah. We had a liberal government in Ontario at that time. But, it's a real tragedy what happened there with Energy East.
It is.
Could use that pipeline now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good to hear from you. We'll stop here. You too. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Percy is in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. You're on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Welcome to it, Percy. What do you have to say?
Oh, well, hi, Rob. I'll be brief. I heard Tim Houston's comments on your show. I hadn't heard them previously, and it was music to my ears because...
Oh, really? Okay.
We've been sitting on our resources, and what's happening in Nova Scotia really is a microcosm of the country as a whole. We should be having surplus after surplus after surplus. We have so much available to us, and I don't think for the past 10 years we've been doing anything with it. We've been wallowing in lethargy, and Donald Trump actually is probably the best thing that's happened to us in a long time because he's forced us to stand up and look around and realize that, we can't be a leech. In many ways, we've become a leech as a nation. We depended on everybody else, whether it's OPEC oil or whether it's the United States for this, that, and the other thing. We can stand on our own, but we need to, get with it and develop our own resources, manufacture our own goods, get that East-West pipeline. I mean, Irving was going to double the size of his refinery years ago, and that would have created a lot of jobs here in the Maritimes. Just a lot of things. It was really surprising, and it was.
So let me ask you, Percy, because you're pretty tuned in there by the sounds of things. You're paying attention. So there's a moratorium in Nova Scotia on fracking.
Yeah.
And one of the Premier Houston says, well, we have to have an adult conversation about that. How do you think that's going to go over if he proposes that they end a fracking ban? What kind of blowback do you think that's going to get?
I think it's going to be loud and it's going to be boisterous, but it's coming from a smaller, it's coming from a minority, a small minority. And I think people here in Nova Scotia, they're hard-pressed to pay their mortgage. They're hard-pressed to buy groceries, the necessities of life. And I think that there are far more who are interested in, being able to pay the bills than, we value what we have here as far as our coastline and everything else, and the province. But I think both can live together in harmony. We don't have to ban everything like Tim Houston was saying. And I'm not particularly a fan of Tim Houston, but I'll tell you, I think you mentioned this, that a lot of people are standing up now because of Donald Trump. They're actually, I don't know if it's a shot of testosterone or what, but...
Well, it's kind of a wake-up call,
Yeah.
Tim Houston said yesterday, we'll play a clip after the news, but Tim Houston said, the world has changed.
Yeah.
Okay? The world has changed. And a province like Nova Scotia has to be more self-reliant.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the government's finances. You have an aging population.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the costs for healthcare. Look at the costs for things like public pensions. All of this stuff. Where's the money coming from?
Yeah.
If you don't grow your economy, right? And what's one way to grow the economy? you tap into your natural resource as well. And he is of the opinion Nova Scotia has a lot of that and a lot of economic opportunity because of that. Thank you for your call. Really interesting hour. Loved all the calls in the first hour. Remember, you can join us right after the news. There's another hour ahead. It's our Friday free-for-all talkback. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback on the Friday free-for-all, so we're wide open. Whatever's on your mind. It could be in the news, not in the news. If it's on your mind, might be on somebody else's mind. Just raise it here, and we will do our best to follow along. Let's get right back to the phones. Who do we have on that next? Calgary, Dwayne in Calgary. Thanks for waiting, Dwayne.
Hey, Rob, how you doing today?
Good. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, Rob, everybody's all mad at Trudeau or Trump or whatever he's doing to us, but did Trudeau not tell Trump last time he was in term that he was going to spend so much on our military and then proceeded not to?
Okay. No, I don't really know, sir. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what did he not? I mean, he went to that and he said he would spend so much through, what was it, 3% on our military?
2% is the target, yeah.
Yeah, but then he proceeded to make it over, 25 years?
I mean, all of these things are always, multi-year plans from the federal government when it comes to, defense spending. You know how long it takes to build a ship in this country, sir?
Oh, yes. But I don't think Trump operates that way. But, I think once Trudeau is gone, I think all our problems with Trump are gone. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, we have, you're out in Calgary, and I'm sure you've been following everything about oil and tariffs and everything else, and the, Danielle Smith's, bid to try and, get a break for Canada, and opposed to this kind of Team Canada approach is using energy as a weapon. One of our great news reporters, Glenn McGregor, is reporting now that the American Petroleum Institute has written to the U.S. Trade Representative to ask that tariff-free status for vital Canadian oil under the USMCA, that's the free trade agreement, be maintained, effectively arguing for a carve-out from the Trump tariffs. That's breaking right now. So that's big news. That might mean that, if that happens, maybe, Danielle Smith's lobbying effort, maybe it's paid off, all the work she's done down there.
Well, she's doing a great job out here as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Good to hear from you today, Dwayne.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Yeah, that's another developing one today. Let's go to Tom in Cambridge. Tom, you're on the air. Hi, Tom.
How you doing, Rob? Yeah, it's kind
you
of
ready
funny
for the
how
election, Tom, in Ontario? You're excited about the election in Ontario, I bet?
No, I'm not excited one little bit about the excitement. I don't understand it. I don't get he's got a mandate. But it's kind of funny how we're going to talk about what's happened in the last week or so, how things have come full circle when it comes to provinces re-examining or looking at, maybe we've got to change our thoughts or our ideology and how we're going to support our provinces in that. So, good on the Premier in Nova Scotia. The fracking is an issue down there. It's going to be done safely because they don't have a lot of fresh water down there, and you're going to probably could upset a lot of natural water resources down there and even offshore. But they want to support themselves. They've been impoverished for a long time, and they can't survive on tourism and fishing and timber forever. So they've got to do something. The same thing out west. It's kind of funny how the First Nations people now are rethinking their status on. Well, maybe we've got to have this pipeline come out this way. No, it's all.
Just to be clear, if I could just interrupt there, Tom, just to be clear, it wasn't all First Nations on the West Coast who were opposed to pipeline development.
I'm agreeing with that. I'm saying is that maybe the ones who were opposed to it are now rethinking their position on that. And if Trump has rattled some cages and maybe it's rattled some brain cells in some people's heads out there, is that we can do more damage to ourselves by locking ourselves into or painting ourselves into corners if we don't start the intertrade between provinces and looking at things that are vital for our country, not just anybody, but for our own status or our own livelihood in this country. And with regards to Quebec, well, you're absolutely right. Where's Quebec going to get? Quebec can't stand on their own either. So maybe they've got to rethink their strategy and looking at, again, is that we can take a stance here, but we're not going to benefit from this. You can't support. I can understand how Alberta feels when they feel they're giving so much money to Quebec, and it's almost like welfare. Eventually, you want people off welfare, and you want to be able to support yourselves. So is that the sort of same line of thinking here?
I think so. Thank you for your call, Tom. Yeah, if you're just joining us, I mean, this is one of the to me, it's one of the most interesting developments since Trump has been inaugurated. What Premier Houston said yesterday at a news conference. I mean, you have the premier of a chronic Atlantic Canada have-not province saying, we don't want to be a have-not province anymore. Sick of it. Tired of hearing from families about people who can't find good jobs in Nova Scotia. People who have to go west to find a job. Sick of hearing complaining from Western Canada about how the West gets nothing in equalization while Atlantic Canada gets all this money in equalization. And he says we have a lot of natural resources. And it's time to have a grown-up conversation about how we're going to maximize their potential. Let's play Houston clip number 2, David. Again, the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston.
My message today is kind of the exact opposite of what they're used to hearing. What Nova Scotians are used to hearing, we're not doing it. And the message has to be, if you look at the world around us today, it's a changing world. And if we can't take the opportunities that are before us to make our province more self-sufficient and our province more sustainable, and a province where we can support Nova Scotians, we have to be willing to have a discussion about all those opportunities.
Shale gas and fracking are not specifically mentioned in this. I'm wondering, is the fracking ban something that you'd like to lift?
Safe onshore exploration of gas. I mean, there's a number of bans. We've banned a number of things in this province that are being done safely in other jurisdictions and are important to the economy. And we have that potential, and the world's going to demand that we have those discussions and look at them.
One of the things that your letter seems to suggest, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, you list the various challenges that the province is facing. U.S., obviously our population growth is not what it has been recently, so there are potential revenues there, potential revenue issues if there's a change in the federal government. And you talk about things in the letter along the lines of controlling government costs without having to tax more. Are you trying to position things in such a way so that if we don't pursue revenue development and extraction more than we have, we are at risk of having to either have fewer services that can be delivered or face higher taxes to account for the revenue shortfalls that we could be facing in the coming years?
I'm not trying to position that. That's the reality.
That's such a good answer. I'm not trying to position that. That's the reality. I mean, what do you think of that? Not to put words in Premier Houston's mouth, but it sounds like the new natural resources policy in Nova Scotia is drill, baby, drill. In my own opinion, about bloody time. I know the left won't be happy. I know the environmental movement won't be happy. There'll be lots of blowback on things like fracking. There'll have to be negotiations with First Nations communities, of course. But when I was growing up on Cape Breton Island, you want a job in oil and gas, you had to go to Alberta. And Cape Breton Island lost thousands of young people, hardworking people, moved to Alberta because that's where the jobs were. Members of my own family did that. Premier Houston seems to be offering them hope that maybe they can work at home. I like what I'm hearing from this guy. What about you? 1-833-668-2577. Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, it's the Friday free-for-all Talkback hour, as a matter of fact. I've never heard so many premiers talk about pipelines as I did this week. Of course, you would hear that from Premier Smith, who would love to see a project like Northern Gateway revived and a pipeline like Energy East be revived. Now we're hearing this from, premiers in Atlantic Canada like Premier Tim Houston, Doug Ford today when he was speaking about launching the election and trying to, build a more resilient Canadian economy. It included talk about the Energy East pipeline. I don't know. I could a project like that be revived after being killed 8 years ago? After TransCanada pulled the plug on that? Maybe some of you in the West would know better than I would. I mean, the original plan for Energy East, before the company shelved it, because it was becoming impossible to navigate the constant challenges against it and the protests and the Hollywood factor. And certainly I think the Trudeau Liberals were hostile to the project. The Quebec government and Quebec mayors, and they were hostile to the project. Major obstacles in getting that project moving. But the original plan, it would have been a 4,500 kilometer long pipeline, 1.1 million barrels of crude a day from Alberta and Saskatchewan to the refineries in Eastern Canada. Starting point would have been Hardisty in Alberta, then south east to Moose Jaw, Brandon, Portage La Prairie, Winnipeg into northwestern Ontario, places like Kenora and Dryden, and then further east to places like Hearst, Kapuskasing, down into Mattawa and Ottawa. I know it's like a Stompin' Tom song, and then into Quebec, which was the big obstacle. Montreal, Lévis. I mean, there are oil refineries in Lévis. I think there are two of them there, as a matter of fact. And then eventually into the Irving refinery in St. John, New Brunswick. That was basically the Energy East pipeline project. And I was always told, and one of the tragic things about it was that most of the pipe is in the ground already. And that the new sections of pipe were short line from Hardisty to the Saskatchewan border, and then everything from the Ontario-Quebec border to St. John, that would have needed new pipe. But mostly everything was in the ground already. You needed new infrastructure upgrades, of course, pumping stations, this kind of stuff. And Irving Oil in New Brunswick was totally in favor of it. It had actually been working alongside TransCanada since the very beginning of the project. But not to be. 2017, TransCanada waved the white flag and said, hey, we tried. But we just can't do it anymore. It cited at the time changed circumstances. The big change, I think, was that this was a project that was first proposed when Stephen Harper was the prime minister and the Conservatives ran the government. And after 2015, Trudeau and the Liberals took over. And Quebec tried to put all kinds of conditions on the pipeline crossing through Quebec. So TransCanada, it spent $1 billion. $1 billion, finally gave up and said, we quit. And in my own opinion, said it's a waste of time to try and build a pipeline in this country. My words, not theirs. And I just wonder now that the winds of change are blowing again, and you see the lead that the Conservatives have, and you hear what you're hearing from these other premiers. Pierre Poilievre says he's a proponent of Energy East, in favor of getting more Canadian oil to Canadian markets, and the threat posed by the Trump administration. Could it be that maybe this project has a future? If we all woke up one day and learned that a company would be willing to commit to a company like Energy East, is that something you'd be in favor of? Getting Alberta oil east? Or is it still just a pipe dream? 1-833-668-2577. Talkback Friday, free for all on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Oh, it's not just any Talkback. It's a Friday free-for-all Talkback. So we follow your lead on Friday. Jeff in Cambridge. Thanks for calling, Jeff. What's on your mind? Hey.
I was wondering if Prime Minister Trudeau got reinforcements on the borders, like let's say 15,000 Canadian Armed Forces, a couple helicopters, and secured it so that Trump was happy. Would Trump actually go ahead and
I don't know.
do the tariffs?
I don't know.
I don't think he would have.
Okay, why do you say that?
It would have been two-faced, and he's not. I know he doesn't fulfill his what he says sometimes, but I don't think he's a liar.
Or maybe Trump takes that as a win. You know, he wants to win. He never wants Americans to get tired of winning, right? Win. And maybe he says, look, that Trudeau was such a lackey when it came to border security, and I straightened out that Trudeau guy. Look what he's done at the border.
But they are paying a high price for their own border security, and the price that lives that are like we've got a situation with laundered money going through casinos. And it's drug money in Canada. Like
that was a big thing in Vancouver.
Yeah. So I'm thinking Mr. President has an issue with the border. So why wouldn't the Prime Minister?
Well, we have issues. We have issues as well with what's coming across the border from the United States into Canada.
I know, but wouldn't like 15,000 troops help?
Maybe.
What's the big deal?
Well, where do we get 15,000 troops, sir?
Well, there's 60,
first of all, right?
65,000 enlisted men in Canada, plus
we're already stretched pretty thin. Right now.
I don't know. And then Ford goes on. He lays down a smoke screen right away, and all the politicians have to go into the smoke screen, or they're liable to commit.
Okay, what's
suicide.
The Doug Ford smoke screen? You kind of lost me there. What's that?
I don't know. Why else would he do it? There's a reason why he's doing it.
Why else would Doug Ford do what?
Go
Donald
so
Trump. Who are you talking about?
Tariffs. Why not just fulfill what the president wanted, and that would have been. And then if the tariffs would have came, then go on a wild spree.
Yeah, I don't know, because the goalposts seem to be, the goalposts seem to be moving with Donald Trump. Yeah. One day it's border security, one day it's fentanyl, and then another day is we want to make money from tariffs because we think Americans are paying too much in tax, so we want to cut income tax for Americans, and one way to do that is we have to get another source of revenue. It's going to be tariffs.
You know why?
Right. So what is it? What is it?
Well,
right.
The president is entertaining. And we're a very bored society. And the more he entertains us, the better we like it, no matter what side of the border we're on.
Okay. So he says February 1st, you're going to get tariffs, Canada. Do you believe him?
Yeah, because we haven't done nothing.
You believe him, okay.
Ford said he's got the Brian Larkin on the wheelhouse, but that's a dream. Brian Larkin got him in the last election.
Okay. We'll see what happens. February 1st. He says February 1st, week from tomorrow.
Thanks for letting me know.
Week from tomorrow could be tariff day. Yeah, you're welcome, Jeff. Hey, thank you so much for your call. That's what the Friday Free Fall is all about. We just kick around these issues. We do have to stop here, though, because the latest breaking news is coming up next, and it's a very busy news day. We'll be right back on the phones. More of your opinions, more of your calls. More topics on Talkback, just ahead on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It is the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? Jim in Cambridge. Thanks for calling, Jim. What's on your mind,
You
Jim?
seem to be very popular in Cambridge today, Rob.
Yeah, it goes like that. It was Kitchener yesterday. It's Cambridge today. So there you go.
I'm calling about the Ontario election that Mr. Ford has called.
Yes.
Which I am dead set against. He already has a mandate.
Of course
and
he
I
does.
think the cost is about $150 million or something like that for another election. However, that's not my main concern. My main concern is I had coffee with Catherine Fife this morning, who is the NDP rep.
Oh, yeah,
in
she's a
Waterloo,
Democrat.
and
Yeah.
who has presented 3 separate bills concerning spousal reunification. I've been
Oh, yes, you've
separated
called
from-
me about this before. Yeah.
Oh, a long time ago, yeah. I've been separated for 7 years, and Catherine has presented 3 bills, the most recent one over 2 years ago. My concern is this, Rob, that when the election is called, those bills die.
That's
so
right.
we have
Yeah.
to start all over
You
again.
got to start all over again.
And-
Yeah.
And I have been working on this for almost 7 years. I have gone through 5 long-term care ministers and 4 social policy chairmen.
Right.
And now I don't know who is going to perhaps take over as long-term care minister. It could be the same gal, Natalia Kusendovia, but who knows? So here we go again, starting
And
all
what
over
does
again.
the Catherine Fife bill? What does it propose to do?
It proposes to have spouses who are separated from their loved ones in the same building. I live in Fairview Mennonite Home in Cambridge. Attached to our building, under the same roof, is a long-term care facility, an assisted living facility, and I live in an independent apartment.
Okay.
And if I were to have my wife transferred, and we don't need an extra room in Cambridge because we know they're at a premium, but if I had my wife transferred, and there's 4 of us in the same situation in my building, if our spouses were transferred, we don't require an extra room. The room that they're presently in Cambridge would become available. There's just, quite frankly, and I've told 3 long-term care ministers to their face, I said, you know, guys, I wish it would happen to you. I wish your spouse or your parents or grandparents were in the same situation. Then you might not bang the desk. You might actually do something. Anyway, that's my complaint for today, Rob. Nice talking to you.
Okay. Well, all the best. Thank you. Best of luck with that. Mike in Kincardine. Mike, you're on the air. Hi. What's on your mind, Mike?
I'd like to talk about the Trump tariffs and stuff like that. And I've been hearing on various things like, if we close the border, we do this, we do that, right? Trump will back off, right?
Right.
I don't believe that for 1 second. The United
what do you
States is flat. The United States is flat broke. They're $36 trillion in debt.
Right.
Trump needs money to pay off that debt and to do his programs. Every U.S. politician is afraid to raise taxes, and he generally believes, rightly or wrongly, that he will be able to raise money through tariffs, right?
Yeah.
So my concern, Rob, is even if we corrected our border situation and whatever else he's complaining about, like NATO and everything else, he'd still lay on the tariffs going forward. He's got it in his mind that he believes tariffs will pay off his debt and allow him to fund things, rightly or wrongly, and he's going to do it no matter what anyone says. So everyone complaining and whining and saying, hey, if our border's secure, I think this border and these other issues by Trump are a ruse. And that's my thoughts, sir.
So whether we, did something to crack down on fentanyl crossing the border or whatever illegal immigration or anything like this, it's all a ruse, basically, and that the plan is tariffs.
I think
right?
it is. I think it is because when you compare us to the southern border,
Yeah.
We are a trickle of this, right? And yes, there's room for.
We should be doing that stuff anyway. We should have a more secure border anyway. We should be meeting our defense obligations anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My fear is, I feel sorry for Danielle Smith because the environmental extremists in the Liberal Party landlocked her oil, and she has no place to sell it. I think Canada.
I think the tide is turning on that now. I think the tide is turning on that now. Yeah.
I think Canada let down its European allies to help them off the Russian oil and gas. It's just Trump sees a weakness and he's going to go for it. That's what I see, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Great call, Mike. Thank you. Yeah. You may be right on that one, given what we've heard from people like Steve Bannon and whatnot in the past, that the free ride to get access to the American market, Bannon described it as being behind the Golden Gate. And if you want to get through the Golden Gates, well, there's going to be a price to pay to gain access to the most dynamic market in the world, the U.S. consumer marketplace. You're going to have to pay a price for that. And that price is going to be tariffs. And all of this stuff about, defense spending and immigration, it's all... Don't fall for that. They want to do tariffs. We could move heaven and earth, and there's no avoiding tariffs. That's a line of thinking that's out there. The tariffs are coming one way or another. One line of thinking, not the only line. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback, Friday Free For All. Plenty of time to fit you in before the top of the hour. 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Andre and Kitchener up next on the Friday Free For All. What's on your mind today, Andre?
You.
Me? What about me?
I'm like, well, the way. It was you.
My ears are burning. Rob. Okay. All right.
No, you're kind. You're a good listener and love your opinion. And I miss you from that last analyze or journalist you did on the road one time, and I congratulate you on that. So What I want to talk about today is Canada's weakness. And I don't understand. I'm very confused. Because, I don't know, let's say 7 years ago, roughly, there was going to be roughly a big change with COVID. And people were calling it the reset. And now we have this. And, like me, in my case, I got rent evicted. That was my problem. There's food, there's gas, there's blah, blah, blah. But rent eviction was the worst because that's $1,000 that I could have used every month, and I'd be okay with all the expense, right? Now, when I live in Quebec, and you keep hearing, big cities in Toronto, if you want to live there, an apartment was $1,200. Well, I got offered to almost double up my pay to work there with union and all that stuff. It's like, no, I can't do it. It's too stressful, right? But I knew it was there. So now Kitchener, Waterloo, has, I think, 700,000, the most grown city.
Yeah, it's growing very fast. Yeah.
Okay. So help me out. So now here we are, more people, more immigrant, more all this. We're growing, and I think it's looking damn great if you look at the city. But unfortunately, there's so many people has left behind, right? So now that's the problem we're having is because there wasn't enough shovel in the ground or for all these people to be, right?
Yeah.
So and now you have Trump who sees our weaknesses because we spent everything. We sent everything as a NATO, correct?
Okay.
NATO country. So now we have nothing left. And when we should have lots left because we are a country who is rich and who is really well recognized in the world. And now we don't have that. We're in debt. So now it's like, okay, now we're dealing with these big wheelers.
Right. So you think Trump senses he senses weakness and he wants to take advantage of our weakness, like he's a predator kind of thing, right? Yeah. Okay. Interesting, Andre. I got to run because our phone lines are suddenly jammed, Andre. So I'm going to let you go for now. But we'll speak soon, my friend. Thank you for those kind words. Dan Veer out in Calgary. Hi, Dan Veer. Up next. Go ahead, Dan.
Hello, Rob.
Hi there. What's on your mind?
Hey. Just about some of the announcements when we were listening that we are ready with counter tariffs, ready with about 37 billion in the first stage and then around 113 billion.
Yeah, the Canadian response. Yeah.
Yeah, like it sounded like it's kind of like a missile, right? But when you're saying it's ready with 37 billion, it's basically who's ready is every Canadian, and that's about $1,000 per person, right?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
And if it's a family of four, it's $4,000 per family. And when they say another 120 billion approximately, that would be $12,000 per family. So I don't know why they're putting it like if they'll be achieving something very great.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Grown men cry when I do math. I don't know if is it going to be an impact like that, a personal financial impact like that? Everyone on tariffs. I'm more worried about. I guess what I'm worried about is I'm worried about people losing their jobs. I'm worried about factories closing and never coming back. I've seen the social ills of chronic unemployment, and it's not pretty. And that's what I'm really worried about.
I'm actually in manufacturing, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing, they're putting tariffs on steel. First thing is the input, like most of the steel comes from, for small manufacturers, it comes from U.S. Most of the suppliers are U.S. We buy stuff from U.S. like it is like a local stuff, right?
Okay.
Like you don't even worry about the borders. You don't even think about borders. But then if suddenly you have to do that, like you can't have steel coming from China like for a $1,000 shipment, right? Like everybody is not buying millions of dollars of stuff. It's only the big companies. Right? So the other thing is like in all these 10 years of Liberal, I haven't seen them mention the word small business. Like how much have they helped the small manufacturers?
Okay, interesting. All right. Thank you. Got to go. We're right up against it here, Dan Veer. Thank you. We'll be right back. If you're on the line, you'll be on the air before the top of the hour. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kim in Calgary up next. You're on the air, Kim. What's on your mind today? All right, let's try Mel in Red Deer. Mel, you go ahead, Mel. Hi, Mel.
Hi. I got a different idea. Okay, if tariffs are going to be put on U.S. goods coming into Canada, the products imported into each individual province that have tariffs, the tariff money should stay in that individual province.
Well, that's a pretty good idea, and I'm wondering if, maybe there is some bargain to be had here, and maybe the same goes for, let's say, if the federal government wanted an export tax on Alberta oil and gas.
Yeah.
Is this some way to have some kind of compromise between Alberta and the Trudeau government where there doesn't seem very little room for compromise on either side?
Well,
what if Ottawa agreed to, because usually an export tax would go to Ottawa and not to the province, but Ottawa said every dollar that we collect in an export tax on Alberta oil and gas, we'll send it right back to Edmonton.
Yeah. That's exactly what it should be in each province. And in that way, each province could take that tax money and maybe pass it
compensate the industry. Compensate the industry, compensate the workers, whatever. Yeah. Okay, you're on to something there, Mel. You are on to something there, Mel. Yeah, you have a great weekend, too. Well, David, we made it. We made it. I think that's all the time we have for calls. In many ways, this is a mess of our own making.
Oh, yes,
I listen to some of these cabinet ministers, like the foreign minister, Melanie Joly, and Anita Anand, said one of the things that the premiers and the prime minister are going to do, they're going to look at taking down interprovincial trade barriers. Like now they're going to look at that.
Now they are. Right. Yeah.
So this has been an issue, David, since before you were born.
Yes, it has.
Economists and business groups have been complaining about interprovincial trade barriers for decades in this country. When conservative governments were in power, when liberal governments were in power, it was an issue then. It's still an issue today. And here we are with, a week to go until we could get hit with tariffs by the United States. Now we're going to look at taking down trade barriers between provinces. And the calculation is the barriers between the provinces is like a 21% tariff on Canadian goods. Goods that move within Canada. We basically tariff ourselves. So provinces can protect their own industries. Half of the provinces in Canada still don't allow the unrestricted transportation of alcohol across provincial borders. Quebec, of course, used to be notorious for this, David. It has since changed its rules, but of course the beverages can only be for personal consumption and not for resale. New Brunswick has limits. Ontario has limits. Premier Ford loves to promote Ontario wine, which is all well and good. But will he make it easy for us to buy BC wine? It is easier in Ontario to buy a bottle of wine from Italy than it is to buy a bottle of wine from British Columbia. Here's another example. I have been told that in British Columbia, certain types of trucks can only be driven at night. But in Alberta, they can only be driven during the day. So that leaves truckers only a small window of time when they can actually cross provincial borders. How does that make any sense? We have a productivity crisis in this country, and these are the silly rules contributing to it. Different provinces have different rules on the kinds of toilet seats that can be used on construction sites. I'm not making this up. Rules about toilet seats on construction sites, and it all amounts to us tariffing ourselves. You think about this. Doug Ford just called a provincial election today. Do you think one of his promises will be, we're going to allow more wines from British Columbia into the Ontario market? No. Of course not. You know why? Because that would cost him votes in Niagara. In some ways, the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs, it's a mess of our own making. You set aside all the talk about oil and gas and the auto industry and the need for more pipelines. We live in a country where our leaders, they can't even agree on nationwide rules about toilet seats at construction sites. One last thought for the week. I'm Rob Snow. Have a great weekend, David. Talk to you on Monday. This is News Radio.